afternoon, everyone. Welcome to OSP EXPO 2014. I'm Trish Henry, OSP's Director of Partnerships and Custom Events. Thank you for joining us. I am very pleased today to welcome Kevin Borders. Kevin is Director of Product Marketing for Alpha Technologies and one of OSP's game changers for 2014. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tell me, who is Alpha Technologies and what makes you different from your competitors?
Well, Alpha is a global supplier of telecom power products.
Okay.
And we also supply products into the industrial, traffic, and security space.
Okay.
But we're probably best known for being a cable TV broadband power supplier.
Interesting.
In fact, our company dates back to the 1970s.
Okay.
Our founder, it's an interesting story, our founder, Fred Kaiser, was watching the Canadian championship football game, the Grey Cup, and the power went out at his local cable TV supplier, which essentially blacked out the rest of the game. So Fred acted in a very entrepreneurial manner, went in his garage, and over time developed a backup power supply, took it to the local cable company, and it became a very well accepted, and in fact became the de facto standard for cable TV even today. So Fred not only launched a new company, but he in essence created a brand new segment called Cable TV Broadband Power.
Wow. And all for Canadian football.
All for Canadian football. And so our history really is one of being a game-changing company, as our founder now and current chairman shows. And our legacy is really a company that is in the outside plant environment because of what we do with power for cable and now for telecom.
Right.
Now, what sets us apart from our competition is we make both AC and DC solutions, as well as renewable energy. And we pride ourselves on the fact that we are very quick to respond to our customers' changing needs.
Okay. And that time frame is shrinking. That
without
response time is getting shorter and shorter.
That's correct, yeah.
That's a wonderful thing to respond to your customers that way. You're an exhibitor with us this year, as you have been for many, many years. Tell me what you're featuring at OSP EXPO this year.
Well, we divide our products into three categories.
Okay.
Powering the core, powering broadband, and powering HetNets. Our core products, we have a new 2,500 amp power plant that's used in distributed power applications for central offices, as well as a new 8-panel BDFB for secondary distribution. For broadband, we have UPS that is used for powering ONTs.
Okay.
And we also have an extension to our very popular line power product. It's a product we announced just this week. It's called the LPS04, which is a sealed version of an up converter. And where that plays, particularly for OSP, is that it mounts on the side of a cabinet, existing remote terminal, or inside the cabinet, and can be used to power devices that are downstream. Then on the HetNet side, we have an outdoor or a cabinet with power for outdoor DAS. And we also have a new product for indoor DAS that uses copper cable to power the indoor DAS electronics. The new product we just announced this week is called the aggregator. So it takes multiple what are known as Class 2 circuits, NEC Class 2 circuits, and aggregates those or combines them, producing a common 48-volt output. And the neat thing about this is that product, when used in conjunction with our elimiter product, which launches that circuit, effectively eliminates the need for batteries at remote sites in an IDAS application.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You've had a busy week, two product launches.
Yes, very good.
So obviously people need to get by the booth and come check those out. Wonderful. How do you define network resiliency and why is it gaining so much attention? We hear it all over the floor this year.
Absolutely. Network resiliency is the ability of the network to operate even when you lose a node or when you have an extended power outage.
Okay.
And so it's gaining traction because communications is fundamental to our society. Voice, data, video, GPS on your phone,
Right.
911 service, all these
Right.
things are essential. Now, when you couple that with changing weather patterns and the threat of terrorist attacks and all these different ways that the network can go down, it's no wonder that the attention is ratcheted up on this.
Sure.
Now, at Alpha, we're focused on power resiliency. So what that means is the ability to keep the network operating even if there's an extended loss of power from the utility company.
Okay.
So that's not just battery backup, that's an
Okay.
extended outage. So that's one of the reasons that we do our line power solutions, because we
Right.
use copper cable to power remote devices from a central office. We also have a product or a product family of DC generators, and those DC generators are fueled by either natural gas or propane,
Wow.
which means you can have a continuous flow of fuel
Sure.
that will keep a remote terminal operational throughout the entire outage.
Wow. So for natural disasters, anything like that,
Exactly,
Alpha's
without a
ready to
doubt.
go. Okay, wonderful. There has been a delay in small cell deployment
Mhm.
in some cases. How has that changed your thoughts on product development in any way?
No, not really.
Okay.
No, small cells are so different than anything else that the industry is doing.
Right.
They have small amount of power consumption. They do require, we think they require battery backup. They don't. They're going to be deployed in mass quantities, so they have to be very low cost. And when you go to a pole, they can't weigh much and they can't take up much size
Sure.
or
Yeah.
much space. So we've been working over the last 12 to 18 months with service providers and with the OEMs to really fully understand what our developments need to be to match the emerging requirements for small
Okay.
cells. So I think that effort's going to be fruitful, even if the growth curve is delayed a bit.
Sure, sure. Well, and I think that customer responsiveness is part of what makes Alpha Technologies
Yeah.
such a standout. So, where do you think DAS small cell het nets are going?
Well, I think DAS and small cells are going to be key to providing the coverage and capacity that's needed in the wireless networks. DAS, I believe, will continue to be deployed in large venues where where deploying that infrastructure, common infrastructure, can be cost effective,
Right.
and where wireless providers will be attracted to it. Small cells, we think in 2015, will start to get beyond the trial stage as we resolve some of these hurdles, like
Sure.
backhaul power, space,
Right.
etc. And they're going to be very, very prolific in the future. The HetNet, the large vendors, as soon as the small cells are available and start to be prevalent,
Right.
these vendors are going to have a common control and management of them. So they do all of the OAM&P, operations,
Sure.
admin, maintenance, and provisioning, common between a macro cell and a small cell.
Okay. All right. Lots coming.
Yeah,
Copper, will it continue to be viable?
we think so, yes.
Okay.
At least in countries that have a developed wireline network,
Sure.
we absolutely think that that copper is going to continue to be a viable communication vehicle.
Okay.
In fact, if you look at what the transmission equipment vendors have done, they have done a tremendous job of increasing the bandwidth available on a copper cable.
I have to agree.
The new GFAS standard is actually going to put copper, or this copper type hybrid arrangement, somewhat on par with fiber to the home without the need to replace the drop. And that's where a lot of the cost comes in
Exactly.
with the deployment of fiber to the home.
Right.
The interesting thing for us as line power advocates, we actually think that GFAST is going to be a boon to line power deployment. The way we see it unfolding is the carriers that offer fiber to the node will at some point start to replace the fiber between the drop
Sure.
and back to the DSLAM cabinet.
Okay.
I'm
got
sorry,
that.
replace the copper with fiber
Okay.
between the fiber to the distribution point node
Okay.
and back to the cabinet. Now, rather than abandon that copper and abandon the DSLAM cabinet, we think that they'll repurpose that,
Okay.
put line power equipment in that cabinet, use the copper cable to power the fiber to the distribution point node.
Right.
And that will offer a much more resilient and reliable power backup scheme than, say, using backfed power from a customer premise.
Agreed. I'm going to be watching over the next year to see if the prediction comes true. You've mentioned line power several times. Appears to be huge for Alpha Technologies. Tell me about the different applications of line power and how to use it.
Okay. So first, just to make sure everybody understands, line power is taking a power source from a central location, delivering it over copper cable to energize remote devices.
Okay.
Where it was, and by the way, for outside plant environments, it's typically plus and minus 190 volts. Okay. You elevate the voltage so you can cover the distance and overcome the loss in the cable. And it's for safety purposes and according to standards, each cable pair is limited to 100 watts of power.
All right.
In the early days of plus and minus 190, it was used to power large D-slams. These D-slams may take 400, 500, 600 watts of power, so you'd use multiple cable pairs to power them from a central office. Mm-hmm. With the advent of the mini D-slam or the sealed D-slam, the smaller ones that are deployed deeper in the network with a smaller footprint, usually one or maybe two copper or cable pairs will power them from a central location.
Okay.
In an interesting twist, the independent telcos are using line power to power ONTs for fiber to the home applications. Right. And by doing that, they avoid having to have AC utility at the home, and they also avoid the need for batteries at the furthest part of the network, which of course gives them a recurring savings in their operational expense.
Sure.
Now, one other last thing on line power is I talked earlier about the aggregator product that we're launching.
Yes.
That's for indoor DAS applications or indoor small cell. And that product or that technology is different, although it's line power, it's different than the outside plant because the National Electrical Code limits you to 60 volts and 100 watts. Otherwise, you have to be in a conduit.
Right.
So what we've done is we have a product called the Elimiter that takes 48 volts from the power system at the host, converts it to 57 volts, which is near 60 to get further distance.
But not over.
Right. And drives that power down to power small remotes, DAS remotes. When we add the aggregator, we can actually take all of those and power take multiple circuits, combine them into a single output and power large DAS remotes. And we do all of this without the need for conduit, without the need for a licensed electrician. It is really a much more economical solution. And because we now have both of these solutions, there's really no need for batteries in at the remote node in an indoor DAS application.
Wow, so cost savings all around. Time and expense.
Both capital and operational, yes.
That's great. One last question for you as a game changer. We're putting together the January issue of OSP Magazine already. Your predictions for next year, yours, Alpha's?
Well, there's a lot of places to look.
I know.
But we're going to focus on three.
Okay, great.
In wireline, we believe that there's going to be just a continued push toward fiber to the home and VDSL as the service providers try to counter DOCSIS 3.1 capabilities. Mm-hmm. We also think that there's going to be a lot of trials for GFAST leading into deployment potentially as early as 2016.
Okay.
And that we think that in itself will be a game changer.
Okay.
On the wireless side, as we mentioned earlier, DAS and small cells are going to continue to be the top of the news.
Right.
There will be macro cell deployment, of course, but small cells and DAS will really dominate. And we think that we will overcome all of the major hurdles that are preventing widespread deployment of small cells. And we think that'll happen next year. So that by the end of next year or early 2016, small cells will start to become a mainstream solution in our industry. Then the last one is something that you mentioned earlier, resiliency.
Sure.
Resiliency is going to continue to be a big topic. In fact, it's going to grow because it's so vital to our needs as consumers, and it's also important for public entities, governments. It's even important for not just disaster recovery, but for defense. I mean, it's just a very big deal. And the interesting thing is the core network, the central office, it's pretty resilient.
Right.
When you think about it, a central office has a 48-volt plant, it has batteries, it has standby generators. So unless it's flooded or knocked down, the central office typically is okay.
Okay.
However, the same can't be said for distributed networks, such as fiber to the home and VDSL and the new DAS and small cell networks.
Right.
And so we believe that that's an area that needs to be focused on. And in fact, at Intellect this week, our CTO gave a plenary speech on exactly that topic and issued, in essence, a call to action for the industry that says we really need to look at this, because if we don't look at this, what could very well happen is we have this, in a disaster, we may have a very well-functioning core network that nobody can access because they don't have power to their fiber to the home or VDSL or small cell.
We need to address the issue before it becomes an issue.
Absolutely.
So, well, I wish you luck. I wish Alpha Technologies luck. Thanks so much.
Very much.
This has been Kevin Borders with Alpha Technologies. I'm Trish Henry at OSP Expo 2014. Thanks for joining us.